If you've been listening to the Consultancy Edge, then welcome back. We've got a new name, but the same mission, finding the sharpest minds in the business and pointing them directly at the people who need them most. Leaders of boutique consultancies who are done being overlooked and are ready to claim the crown in their sector. I'm Matt Hodkinson, and if you're brand new here, I'm glad you found us, and I think you're in exactly the right place. Now, for the first episode, I wanted to go big, and I think we've managed it. Justin Michael has written, I want to say, a dozen books on sales, prospecting, manifestation, and a whole lot more. He's one of the highest paid consultants on these subjects anywhere in the world, having cut his teeth at firms like Salesforce and LinkedIn. And yet what strikes you about him is how genuinely open he is. Not just the polished stuff, but the real tactics, the real thinking, and the things that work for boutique consultancies today. Now, I'll be honest with you, we didn't exactly hit it off straight away. In our early exchanges, we were both pretty skeptical. I wasn't sure that our thinking would align, and I suspect that he felt the same. Just for the record, that's not actually a requirement for a great conversation. Some of the best ones come from that tension. But what you're about to hear surprised us both. We ended up deep in agreement on everything from founder-led sales and personal branding to LinkedIn and AI. Nodding along like we've been finishing each other's sentences for years. I think you're going to enjoy this one. I certainly did. Let's go. Justin Michael, welcome to the Unique Boutique. It's great to have you.
Yeah, excited to have this interview. I think I saw you interviewing Alan Weiss, who's definitely like a folk hero for all the consultants.
He really is such an interesting character, and really enjoyed that episode. It was quite a surprise actually, because in the preamble, he's obviously gives off this persona, and I think it's the one I was most nervous about. But he soon put me at ease. But yeah, of course, that's how we connected. Um, Justin, I want to jump in and ask you because you have a fantastic personal brand. That's worth saying right up front. Most consultants won't call themselves the number one in their category, even when they are a lot of the time. And you've built a business seemingly on doing exactly that. What do the rest of them get wrong about claiming that ground of number one?
Well, I came out of like Al Ries and 22 Immutable Laws of Branding and Marketing, that orange book. It's sort of the law of the category. You claim the category. And what's funny in the enterprise in Fortune 1000 is all the companies claim to be number one at once. And it's totally fine in England and America in a capitalist society. You know, Hertz claims to be number one. And then funny enough, Avis was number two. So claiming to be number two was a powerful distinction. But I actually just grafted it, man, the last 5, 6 years. I didn't even run into Alan's work till maybe 3, 4 years ago when I was traveling in Dubai. I was in a bookstore and there's all of his $1 million consulting on a table. I was doing a ton of advisory for sales and GTM. And that really then turned into, oh, this consulting thing. Because I love the 80/20 principle. And that was written by Richard Koch, Koch, the South African who invested in Betfair and made hundreds of millions and retired. He was the mentor of Tim Ferriss. So on the cover of the 80/20 principle is a testimonial by Tim. Yeah, so he was originally Bain and BCG, a Boston Consulting Group. And so he was sort of a hero to me. So I realized the big money wasn't in selling software. It was actually doing consulting. 1 trillion a year flows through that. So I became the number one consultant who came out of B2B sales. So it's a micro niche. I think Alan has swamped me. I think he's the goat of goats. And I do transactions at like 15 grand or 45 grand. I've done some 100K deals. It's been great. I think Alan's work has helped all of us. I mean, he's the godfather.
Yeah, amazing to hear. And of course, one thing I notice is that you've chosen to give back through writing as well. I mean, you've had more than 10 bestsellers and co-authored a bunch of books as well. Sales Superpowers. I know Rewriting the Law of Attraction is one of your recent books to put out as well. What is it that motivates you to teach others via that medium? I think a lot of successful consultants like yourself would just carve the path of carrying on with their sharing their expertise with clients, but you've attracted a much larger audience than that. What was the big motivator?
Yeah, so my advice is Find a content vector you love. And Naval Ravikant had this awesome pyramid, which was like the new leverage in the new economy. And I saw Hormozy posting about it. But essentially, if you love blogging, do a Substack. If you love writing, do a book. If you can do lots of little ebooks, if you do courses, whatever you love, you can leverage it. So if writing a book is like a hair shirt and something you would hate to do, don't do it. But my father was a linguistics PhD, so I was always able to just really write. And I spent 20 years in the field doing strategic sales, selling mobile technology, going through all these other courses, being mentored by Tony Hughes in Sydney, Australia, you know. So I had a really strong opinion and interesting experience path. And by putting out all the books, it's interesting, right? Because there's Daniel Priestley, and he talks about this sort of web of content that gets you in. I mean, when someone hires me and pays me a high fee, they've read 2 or 3 of my books, listened to 2 hours of podcasts, and usually meet with me 2 or 3 times. And so I just built that out. You know, when I started at 40, I'm 46. This guy, Steve Richards, said, "Hey, you have to have a book so you can do sales kickoffs and speaking engagements," right? So it gives you some authority, but it's not like, you put it out there. I mean, Steve Chandler, you might know,
Yeah.
he talks about this client, she puts out a book, she goes on Oprah, 40 million people see it, and no one called her up and said, "Hey, can I pay 25 grand for your consulting services?" The gold does not roll out of the mountains and mine itself. You still have to have conversations and deepen them. But it's fantastic when someone loves what you're doing and sees this podcast. I mean, you have a book, right? Is that yours? That red
Yeah,
one?
yeah, Mescopology right behind me.
I really love the name and the cover. It's super purple cow. It's weird. I love it.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
I
that was
mean,
the idea. It's got to stand out, right? And of
it
course,
stands out.
I was a student of Daniel Priestley back in the day. Did his
Oh,
Keepers of
wow.
Influence program when it was an in-person experience many years ago.
That's so
And
cool.
I think actually one of those awards, that one up there, is actually product of the year from that program. So that's taking me back a good while. And that idea of content, and as you say, it doesn't overnight transform into, as you say, the gold coming down from the hills. But for those who are minded to get their expertise out of their heads onto paper, what should their expectation be? Where are the benefits? Is it something you've really got to kind of promote yourself and stay the long course with it?
Well, I have a publisher now. I've been on Wiley and HarperCollins, but I have one he's independent in Arizona, and he helps consultants kind of write these books. My books are short, like 45,000 words, half the length. But this will blow your mind. There were 4 million books last year worldwide, 11,000 a day times 365.
Wow.
So you're competing in this incredible red ocean. Now, Gartner, formerly Corporate Executive Board, CEB, proved statistically that 100% of all product services are commodities. There's no difference. So I say, "Hey, Matt, I'm going to give you a 7 Series BMW, or I'm going to give you an S500 Mercedes." Make the call. You're like, "I'm kind of cool with both." You're probably happy. 100,000 pound vehicle, they're pretty equal in your mind.
Yeah.
The experience they have with the seller is what differentiates. So if they love your podcast and they feel an emotional connection and they see your cool book with the funky cover and they like read it, like, "Oh, he's different. Like, I'm gonna be different." They form the emotional attachment. That's what they buy, even if you're more expensive. So the experience of the interaction is really what creates the moat and the differentiator. Not to say that you shouldn't, have a niche or a calling card, and I'm sure we'll get into that, but people do a phenomenal job of differentiating and then they're not good at selling. And that's a problem. You kind of have to have all of it. You could even have just kind of a dull book and dull offerings, but if you sell it really well, you'll still get clients because people will
Yeah.
trust you and they'll like you, know, like, trust, and they'll buy.
Yeah, it's important to have both. It's not one or the other, because if you get the attention and you can't follow through on it, then it's not going to be worth a hell of a lot. But
Yeah.
I'm interested because as I understand it, you cut your sales teeth with the likes of Salesforce and LinkedIn, some big heavy hitting names in the world of B2B. Take me back to the point where you considered yourself to stop being a sales trainer and started being Justin Michael, the sort of personal brand. Was it a conscious decision, or did you notice it after it had already happened?
Yeah. I mean, I had the imposter syndrome just like everyone. I mean, I turned 40 and this guy from Australia, Luigi Preston Enzi's like, He's like, mate, you're gonna make millions as a trainer. And I was like, I don't think so. And he made an introduction to this company, F45 Fitness, these pop-up gyms, and I think like it's a Mark Wahlberg company. So I always joke like Marky Mark was my first client, which takes me back to my rollerblading days in the 90s when that was cool. But I did that flight and it was like franchisees and doing LinkedIn stuff. And that was really cool. I know the CRO. And I still didn't really consider myself a full-blown consultant yet because I started just doing a bunch of sales training in 2020, 21. Well, then I ended up moving to Dubai and then Italy and then Switzerland. And then I trained like 250 teams and worked with 1,000 people one-to-one and wrote 12 books. And so it all kind of feels like a blur now. But you reach a point after working with dozens of organizations and just like hundreds of folks one-to-one that you really start to understand the value and the heart of your offering and where you can and can't transform people. And then if you do it enough, it's kind of like a good chiropractor or healer. Like people are getting better. You like the sales are improving. They're seeing the ROI. The testimonials are rolling in, and you start to develop tremendous confidence because you understand now your input to output ratio. Like the pattern recognition is amazing. Someone comes in, you're like, "Oops, seen that movie before. We got to go just for this," and then you get the outcome, and it's kind of magical in a way because about 97% of the time, right? If you see the pattern in an organization or person, you can affect it. And sometimes it takes 90 days, and sometimes it takes 6 to 18 months, sometimes it takes years. But if you really commit to every person you're going to help, it's amazing. So 6 years later, I got people that have made millions using my techniques. And I'm seeing people now in the first 90 days, I'm coaching and training these consultants, and they're doing 50 grand, 100 grand in 3 months, just using a lot of my chat flows. And I really specialize in client acquisition for consultants, which has been, I think, the missing link is to really go strong there. It's like someone in the gym, like who only works arms and they're like huge like this and they're just spindly little legs. The industry, I think, by and large, uses demand gen and landing pages and ads or like heavy referral networks. And I do a lot of like direct selling for consultings through DM, and that is really unusual. There's one guy who does it named Taki Moore in Australia,
Exactly.
and he has a sell by chat YouTube. But when I went and looked at the stuff, it's like, hey, Matt, thanks for connecting. Do you want tips or access to my community? And it's like, try that with a millionaire. Like I have to deal with like really high level board members, VCs, CEOs, founders, high ego types. And you can't walk up and be like, you want a great offer? And they're like, Heisman, we're not going to talk to you.
Well, let me dive a little bit deeper into that, Justin, because I know that, and I've even seen this story does perpetuate this idea that consultancies, when they are reaching out to large organizations, some of them household names, enterprise companies, that the cold outreach that they're all chasing, that sort of that mythical silver bullet for what they're trying to do, it just doesn't work. Is it down to the channel? Is it down to the approach? Is it down to the messaging? Is it all of those things? Or will it simply not work for the profile of consultancy that's looking to get into those enterprise clients?
Well, the thing is that the sales cycle going after enterprise clients can be 3 if you're lucky in the buying window and 6 to 18 months. So if you're going in consulting right now on the side, it's fine. But if you want to make a great living, like 50 grand a month, 100 grand a month, you have to have offerings that will close quickly. You can't bank on it. So I have like a slow burner moving of these big whales, and then I have this front burner of fast closes. So I work with a lot of individuals who pay me with, stock or a credit card immediately, lower ticket offering. And then I've worked with like a cybersecurity company, 2.5 billion. I've worked with HubSpot, trained 65 reps there. I've done massive deals. So I have this like it's like a kitchen. I have like this slow simmering, boiling back here, and boom, like a 50K deal will break. But I make my bread and butter training a lot of individuals, working with a lot of VPs, CROs, fractionals, solopreneurs. And I would say the number one way I'm getting paid is spouses. I always joke, it's the wives, because they're like, $12,000. We got to redo our kitchen. We're going to Bali. We got the college fund. And then they're like, wait a second, you're way smarter than Alex Hormozy. Like, well, hire that Justin guy. You're awesome. And they become the champion. And then they actually make money. And that's really cool. That's the love. Like whatever you do to serve other people, find a way that the impact is real.
Yeah.
Because if you can do that, you'll love the hard part. if you're iffy about it. And so I work with a lot of consultants and coaches where they're like mindset or conflict resolution, or there's all these soft ones where it's harder to tie. The cool thing about we're doing, and I think you too, right? You can tie it to real dollars. They can work with you for 6 months and they can see a growth curve, an improvement in a key metric, make money, save money, reduce risk, that type of thing. So if you're in strategic consulting and business consulting, it's a really pure ROI. And so it's real easy to get the impact and scale it up on the back end.
Yeah, amazing. I do want to just touch on something we discussed a little while ago, this idea of personal brand. And of course, you've worked with large organizations, you've worked in organizations where the company is the brand. And we mentioned the key person of influence and what Daniel talks about as well. I think there's a perception with a lot of consultancies that there has to be a bit of a figurehead. There has to be thought leadership, that term that we bandy around as well. But where is the greatest sort of effect? Do we need consultancy leaders to be a personal brand within their organizations? How do we balance the kind of succession plan and the value in the business when the perception is it's all in one person? How do you reconcile all of that, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a kind of contrarian view because most of how I build these businesses is through social proof. I tell all my clients, hey, I'm really good at selling you. I've sold for 25 years, so don't buy from me. Talk to my clients, contact the people in the case studies and testimonials. I think that's why like Tony Robbins and his like Unleash the Power Within does well because people go there and they rave and like everyone's like, how was it? They're like, it was totally worth the money. So they get and they have tons of case studies and he runs studies on how they do in a year with like, I don't know, this recent one that he threw in Germany. I guess he works with like Stanford or some college to look at the data on the success of it. And so I think for me, like I always say, your process of acquiring clients has to be this good. If they put me in the witness protection program, changed my name, put me in Omaha, Nebraska, flew me into the Philippines, I didn't even speak the language. Using my seven-figure formula system, within 6 months, I could make a quarter million. I could be on track because I'll go out and I'll work for free. I'll help everybody. They'll all rave, and then I'll leverage the testimonials to get more. There's two ways to grow a consultant. One consultancy, one is exceptionalism, multiple exits. You worked for Richard Branson, you got this award, you did all this. And the other way is simply being a practitioner and getting great results. I don't know. I was having some issues with my arms from typing so much, and there was this rheumatologist, this pain doctor, and he was like South Korean, and he was in Santa Barbara or something. And I went in there, and he was healing people, and there was like 100 people. It was like a line out a door, and like Jesus arrives and is healing the sick, like they line to the horizon. So if you can help people, you will always work. That's the crazy thing. So focusing on the results, I mean, that book, Be So Good They Can't Ignore You. That said, like most people are doing almost no prospecting. You have two hands, and we're going to play tennis. We'll cut this one off. Good luck. So I tell my clients 80% of your life is prospecting until you fill the practice. Then maybe 50, then maybe 40, then maybe 20. But they like to start out with like, I'll kind of develop clients occasionally. Like, you know what I mean? So I'll wait for referrals or I'll leverage the network I have. And I'm going out and say, okay, we're going to build lists and we're going to do 50 touches a day and we're going to max the invites and we're going to get you 5 discovery calls a week, 10 discovery calls a week, nutty stuff like that, you know? Like, it's a lot of the American sports, Babe Ruth, the home run king and the strikeout king. If you have unlimited at bats, you don't have to worry too much about your close rates.
I think a lot of consultancy leaders would agree that they want to get to the point where they do have that sort of dial of new business that they can dial up and down to suit their availability, their capacity,
Yeah.
and their growth plans. But it seems so elusive to those, especially the ones that do rely on referrals, and that's a great many of the consultancies that I speak to. How realistic is it through the methods that you teach to get to that point where you do have that level of control that you can decide when the new clients are getting onboarded, when the team are at capacity, and those growth plans are certainly being realized?
Well, this nexus point of marketing and sales, because when you're going on LinkedIn and there's a billion people with 4 million books and so 40% of Americans side hustle, which is wild. So the first step is to get attention. So people go on LinkedIn and they send messages and they never get a response. So they get very sporadic, 1 in 100, 1, 200, this doesn't work. So the first thing is, well, your initial message stinks because let's first get a reaction. So you got to get a reaction. And then the thing is, LinkedIn is a DM flow platform. It's a chat platform. It's not an email. It's not, I need the perfect pitch slap from Matt. Oh, check this one out. I wrote it with Grok. I forensically studied Matt and I have the perfect 75 words. He's going to read this and he's going to book the meeting. Matt wants to talk about Matt. He wants to talk about his goals, his dreams, his vision. So I think like slowing down and approaching customer acquisition, if you have a high fee consulting business and you call people leads, you're doomed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These are maybe suspects, prospects, humans, customers, but it's like the same reason Gordon Ramsay is in the restaurant and he's a multimillionaire and he's still in the restaurant meeting you. Why? Because he wants to give a bespoke white glove experience. He cares so much about the experience. I'm in my DMs. That's the new cold call. And I'm there and I'm not an empty suit. People are always like, this is a bot. I'm like, if this is a bot, I'm a billionaire. And I'll voice drop, be like, proof of life, Liam Neeson, it's me. So I didn't see a lot of that in the other consulting manuals. I think someone like Len Cioni has such an amazing speaking stage career and these huge books that sell millions. I think it's enough to flow inbound to his consultant group. But for someone totally solo like me, and if you're listening to this, you've got to be hunting in the DMs in a really clever way to get the right people talking to you and get people on Zooms. So the spirit animal is the snail, and that comes from Rich Litvin. But I'm weird because I'm everywhere. And then if you talk to me, I'm really slow. I'm like, why don't we just carve out time? And then I just sit on a call and listen to you and ask you a ton of questions.
That's how we really get to the root of understanding the client base. And if you feed that back into your messaging, that's when it really works, right? And that does lead into my next question, actually, because and I don't know whether we agree or disagree on this, but my argument to boutique founders is that positioning is upstream of everything. That no outbound sequence, no tactic, no campaign ever rescues a firm that sounds like its competitors, or those initial messages are just not attracting any sort of attention worthiness, if you like. So you work on the pipeline side of things. How true is that? It sounds like from what you're saying that you recognize that differentiation, that messaging is really key, right?
Yeah, because I call it pattern interrupts, right? It is like the purple cow, Seth Godin. Like if you use fully generic messaging, how will you attract attention? Like how will they, right? In the old pickup days, it was just peacocking. They'd wear like a big hat or a big necklace, like Flava Flav, like just to get their attention. And these people in our generation, you walk in a nightclub and people are dressed like a circus freak, and just because they're trying to get attention, right? Tommy Lee. Um, I also, though, have this weird concept in my book, which I call de-niching, which might make David C. Baker,
Yeah, yeah.
give him nightmares and cold sweats, but it actually comes from people like Steve Chandler because it's the left-handed tuba player theory. I'm on a first-class airplane and I sit down and I coach right-handed tuba players, but this is a left-handed tuba player. He goes, "Hey, can you help me?" I'm like, "No, you're left-handed. Let me know if you know right-handed." So much is like that. So I try to establish a calling card that is a differentiator. Like I have a client, he did red zone selling. He's into closing, all about ways to close sales. That's the problem, the bottleneck, 20%. Let's get you to 35. And he goes out like that, but he trains full cycle. He does opening and does progression, his closing. He does this Chinese menu of stuff. You're a razor with many blades. So Chandler says niche rhymes with quiche and should stay in France, or niche is a hole in the wall. Neither one do you want. So the thing that I do is I niche on the problem, not the persona. I solve client acquisition in top funnel for founders, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, VPs, CROs, team leaders, companies, coaches. It's just, this is the top funnel of this situation. If you need to get clients outbound, I help you.
Yeah.
And that
Okay.
gives
So
me
we
5
do
million
agree on
reps.
that fundamentally.
But
Just
maybe
okay.
you can translate that into how that fits with you, because I'm saying de-niching, but I'm still not saying you should put out AI vanilla slop and be forgettable.
Exactly right. I call it the situational niche, but it's essentially the same thing, that you're niching to the situation, the frustrations, the challenges, the
The
problems.
pain.
Because
Yeah.
because that's what a niche has to do. And I think, and I really do want listeners to kind of get this across, that the niche that we think is niching, which is sector specificity, or going after a certain vertical, or even talking at sort of job title level, is so unimportant when you consider that that person is experiencing something viscerally every day that they wish to change. And if you can tap into that and get people recognizing themselves in your proposition via that problem statement, so much more powerful than saying we work with healthcare companies, for example.
100% true. Because when you do advertising, you're like, I need 18 to 24 females who like yoga in Atlanta, and you run the ad. But the problem is, really, the problem statement is people looking to get fit, which is then very much wider. I mean, in my business, there's 5 million technology sellers, there's 500 million small businesses. So people always ask me, they're like, I just have trouble getting clients. I'm like, you're the scarce item and their legion. I say this in seven figure formula. You got to flip it in your mind. And all you have to do is start filtering. So you need a scenario or system where you're having hundreds of chat flows, you're qualifying in the DMs, and they're only getting on a call with you. That's like the brass ring because they've shown some intent.
Yeah.
Versus the way a lot of consultants are doing. It's like, yes, finally someone responded to my email sequence, and they get some low-level person coming in for free consulting.
Yeah, it's got a big more pull than push, right?
Yeah.
So when a consultant does come to you, Justin, with a pipeline problem, how often is it the case that that differentiation piece that they're messaging is the real issue, and that's where you're having to start the conversation?
I try to find out where their unique genius is or their God-given gift so they can push on that.
Yeah,
I find they're almost never prospecting enough because they feel they're being strategic and having quality. And I tell them something like this. I'm like, well, if you're relying on email, 20% open and three people click. So if you send one email, chances of them seeing it is zero. If you've seen five emails, it's zero. Like no one sees an email until you try 100. So my advice to you is like, you're invisible. Do you know what I mean? The social selling example, just really generic looking GPT slops. So it's kind of a combination, right? They don't really know where they add value. I mean, once you have the social proof, you have to have like this flex statement of saying like, hey, you remind me of another consultant that I worked with in England who came out of the technology business and was doing 10 grand a month. Here's how I got him to 50 grand a month. So I have these kind of heuristics of how I position. It's like a classic unique value proposition. And in order to do that, yes, you'd have to position and differentiate. What you find is there's sort of a malaise, there's a diffusion, it's a opaqueness, it's fuzzy, right? What they do is fuzzy, how they present is fuzzy, and then there's just no sharpness, no edge or leverage points on it.
and those case studies are so important. I do want to dive into that because um, we did an episode as the consultancy edge when we spoke to James DeRoche about the importance of social proof, capturing case studies and the different and the formats that kind of there's a tried and tested which is actually becoming a little bit tired now, that classic sort of problem solution sort of dynamic and story. But to your mind, I do want to tap into two areas. How can consultants get better at capturing the social proof? Because I know how terrible they are through the conversations I have day after day with consultants that can't cite the quantifiable results that they've generated for clients. And then secondly, how best do they kind of lead with that? Is it about just having that bank of case studies that they can refer to in those conversations and say, you remind me of these guys and that situation? Or are there other ways you can kind of lead with social proof as well?
Right. Your first social proof is yourself. Like you're David Goggins, like here I was overweight doing pest control to Navy SEAL who took 7 times to do it. Love that book. So
Yeah.
your before after story is powerful. And then if you do have enough clients, tell the story of someone. Now I have, I don't know, like 20 video recordings and someone is thinking of hiring me and I'll just on WhatsApp send all 20 and smoke comes out of the phone. And I have like 200 screenshots of people that work with me. Because in the beginning it was like, I didn't really have a degree or a distinction. I mean, I made millions of dollars doing this across 7 figures. I became one of the top paid consultants, probably top three ever to come out of B2B sales. We're a little niche. In our niche of B2B SaaS sales, like the highest paid people are making maybe 400, 500K once in a blue moon. Someone will do like $1 million a year, but it's not like, if you went to Wharton, Harvard, or Stanford and you came out of the right club of people. The cool thing about consultants is a lot of the ones who made the most money are just scrappy and smart. And there's just, blue collar, street smart. They just out hustled and outworked, but you got to be really strategic with it. Man, there's a lot of ways to go with that question. Um,
Yeah. So I, I do want to talk about category as well, because at the other end of the scale, when people are talking about um, the niche that they speak to, and we've talked about that situational niche, of course, but at the other end of the scale, there's the categories, the way that people describe themselves and their proposition, uh, almost beyond the value proposition statement, to describe the entity, their identity as an organization as well, their category. And I talk to a lot of consultancies about how, if you are going to claim the crown and be the go-to in your sector, to claim that category of one, then quite often that's about using new language. It's about retaining clarity, retaining context, but coming up with new language that describes themselves in a different way, that makes them incomparable. Now, I see sales superpowers really more as a category label than just a book title. Was that deliberate from the start? Was that a category and a territory that you were looking to claim consciously?
I've had a lot of conversations with ChatGPT about myself to try to understand this question because I've written 12 books.
Yeah.
But essentially, my best-selling book was a book called Tech Powered Sales. It came out in 2021, and I've done a dozen books since then. It sort of predicted RevOps, revenue operations, and the full automation of selling. And I became known as the Salesborg. I had salesborgs.ai, Seller Cyborg, right? I was training fleets of SDRs, this whole automate the top funnel, which you now see billboards with AI SDR, sales development rep. By the time I had done this, I put out 17 PDFs. I called the Codex Guides. My inspiration there was Joseph Smith and the Golden Tablets in the Woods, the whole Mormon founding story. So I thought it'd be funny to release it to Reddit, and a stadium full of people downloaded, like 50,000 people. Well, then it was all out there for several years, and I wrote Sales Superpowers, which was going to be called Superhuman Selling, But I found this is a fun story, but the most successful superhero of all time was Spider-Man. Superman didn't do it. And that was because it was a human kid who gets supernatural powers by being bit by a spider. Now, what does that tie to? Harry Potter, a kid who becomes superhuman, because people gravitate most to humans having superpowers. So I came up with this name, and it went really viral, and it did pretty well. But yeah, as far as carving out a new category, um, my thing has been like neuroscience, counterintuitive techniques, neurolinguistic programming. I'm noticed like one of the most innovative people in the world at top funnel sales, outbound prospecting, prospecting with technology. And there's only about 4 or 5 people who are kind of known like that, but I'm the most maverick one. So can I claim what category can I claim? I mean, heuristics, linguistics. It's hard now, right? Because everybody's got the AI and the cloud codes and they're all kind of doing it, but I was early.
Is technology a leveler in that respect? Do you feel that, you know, they say rising tide lifts all boats? Is it democratizing sales? Is it sort of, I think for many, it's sort of clouding the waters a little bit, and people are finding it difficult to keep pace with the advances in technology. If you just look at where Claude has gone in the last few weeks, where the latest version of ChatGPT has gone as well, and jostling for position, all of that at the same time as this sort of prospecting problem for a lot of consultancies still needs to be solved. Where do they all collide, do you think?
Yeah, so I know the word Luddite, I think, stems from England, right? Like in the factory workers is some term out of the 19th century.
I believe so.
I was always bleeding edge until like 2021, the most modern platforms, even working in an AI early automation company for top funnel. But I don't see Alan Weiss doing Claude Code training, and I don't see David Baker doing that because here's what's happening. 75% of the human workforce is under 44, millennial Gen Z. These generations have grown up on a smartphone. They don't know how to talk to C-levels. They don't know how to position. Some of them do, but overall, they've been in this hyper digital world of social media. And so the skills they need are actually soft skills, C-level acumen, gravitas, building consensus, sitting with a human, talking money, making them uncomfortable, behavioral change, awkwardness. They are risk averse. They are non-confrontational. I'll sit down with a millionaire and give them tough love and they'll yell at me and I'll stay calm. How do you teach that? Anyone that's done 6 and 7 figure business deals has been in high pressure C-level scenarios. So I wrote a book recently called The Frame, all about frame psychology. And Oren Klaff is a friend who did Pitch Anything, genius guy. And he actually interviewed me and we're friends. But I think those traditional how to be strategic and then pushing that into the LLM prompts is, I think, where I'm going because these kids are wizards on look at all this personalization I pulled, and then they slop.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I found out Matt Hodkinson has like 2 Rhodesian rid pack. I'm going to send it to him. I'm like, that's cool. Why would he pay you for that? I know, oh, I'm going to put in the personalization. I have PS. I know the name of the Chinese food down the street from his office. Look at that. I could do that. It's like, that's going to sell you a deal, right? It's like, it's such a magical purple squirrel at the moment. So then I have a friend that took all the clay stuff, these clay tables these kids are
Mhm.
making, and he redid it in OpenClaw, like some of this ClaudeBot stuff. So the tech is actually moving so fast that 6 months from now, there'll be tech that does the tech now. So you almost can't, so I think the classics are what you have to do here to stay innovative. Because at the end of the day, if you can find a way to use Claude and AI to make them more money, you win. But if you go in as advisor and consultant and have all this whiz bang AI and you don't see their revenue improve or their margin improve and you don't get a real business outcome, then you're just sort of entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great shout. I completely agree with that, Justin. I wanted to speak directly to those founders listening right now who are perhaps losing pitches that they know that they should be winning. There's going to be countless because again, I speak to them every day. This is one of the key challenges. These guys do fantastic work. They've got great teams. They've got capacity, and when they speak with the right profile of prospects, they don't actually find sales all that difficult, but they're just not getting into the conversation as often and they compromise, I guess, on the quality of the prospects that they're actually pitching to a lot of the time as well. So they're losing those pitches. What are they doing to themselves? Where should they be looking for the answers they're looking for?
So sales is like dating, and the LinkedIn app is where you're failing because email is a 1 in 1,000 response. Ads are very expensive. Getting one person to click something on LinkedIn costs $75. Do the math, right? Native advertising. If you have the money, it's powerful. Do it. YouTube can take months and hundreds of videos. And like what you're doing, it's paying off now because you've been at it a really long time. But if you don't want to go as big as Matt Hodkinson, then you can't dabble YouTube. You can't put up a few YouTubes. Like I have done hundreds of interviews, and every once in a while, someone will be like, "Hey, I saw you on this podcast," and we get into a conversation. I'll get a lead, but that's not fueling it. So you need to find a way that's differentiated to stand out, to crack first conversation, whether it's humor or wit, or you put out an assessment or a guide or POV, a point of view, and get opinions on it. And so a lot of my book and my work is sparking the first conversation.
Mm.
Get into lots of conversations, have lots of Zoom calls, slow down. Because as a consultant or agencies, you're trying to get clients and that's pluralism. You really want to focus on just getting the next good client, slowing down, hearing them out. So, yeah, I think a lot of the approach techniques and outbound flows are just broken for consultants. I've read Coach Builder by, what is it? Building a Story Brand, Donald Miller. Is that what
Yeah,
it is?
yeah.
That book will make you less than 75K a year. You will have skinny kids. I'm sure he's a nice guy and he wrote a good book, but that book is what my book fixes. If you are a consultant listening to this or a founder and you think you're going to get clients through landing pages, squeeze pages, inbound, ads, AI, you will, but you're not making 7 figures a year. You're not doing 100,000 a month. I am aggressive. I contact thousands of people all the time. I'm everywhere. Like there's not a day of my life I don't send 50 hyper targeted messages. I'm in contact with hundreds of people, thousands of people over WhatsApp. For me to pull down $100,000 income month, if you saw how many interactions and how many live conversations I'm actually having, it would be stunning. Like one time someone pulled my invoice record for 1 year where I did over 7 figures. I had 200 invoices and it just blew their freaking mind. They're like, that's awful. That's transactional. I'm doing a good job. It's like, yeah, well, this person paid me 7, that person paid me 41, that paid me 25. Like every time I get on a call, I find out how much money they have and they pay me something. And then I just stack it. So it's a unique way of doing it, but I work in logistics containers and my hourly backs out to 500 2,000 an hour. And I won't work for 2 hours. If you hire me for 5,000 for 2 hours, I say, hey, watch Bad Boys 3 because I'm all about reinforcement. I usually have to have a minimum 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months because the money is no good if I can't have the result and impact. 21 days to move the brain, neuroplasticity. So it's really funny because I thought coming on this podcast, we would disagree with a lot of things, but it's funny because I really agreed with what you said about the situational problem. Makes sense. So I want to advocate people taking a little more action, being strategic, and think of it like dating. So look at your calendar last week. If you don't have discovery calls, like in 90 days from now, red alert. Like you should have at least a couple meetings a day that are solid,
Yeah.
always fueling us.
I think there's part of what you're saying there, Justin, is quite liberating. The fact that it's not necessarily about being the content production house. It's not about having the big YouTube channel and having to, create, record, edit, script, whatever is involved in all of that. But at the other end of the scale, of course, you're clearly putting in the hard yards to create those opportunities, which kind of makes perfect sense. If you don't put the effort in, you're not going to get those calls on the diary either. Does lead into my next question. This might be a bit of a challenge on the spot, but if those listening have got to make one move before next Monday, and for everybody listening, we're speaking on a Wednesday, so you've got 4 or 5 days, 3 working days, let's say, for that boutique founder who knows that they perhaps aren't getting the results that they're looking for right now. They haven't got the discovery calls in the diary with any great consistency or regularity. What's that one move that they're making before Monday?
It can't be reading my book, Seven Figure Formula. Just kidding. All right, all right, all right.
Good plug.
That's bad. I had to do it one time. Okay, get away from the plug. You know what I would say? I would say video. This is going to be a weird share right now. I mean, in the DMs. So from LinkedIn first degree, like in the LinkedIn app, which 100% of people have, you can hit the attachment on iPhone or on Android, and you can record what I call a video drop. And I mean like real and raw. Don't produce this thing. No video, no Wistia, no Loom. Don't make it great. I mean, you just came from the gym, you're sweaty, you're in the grocery store, you're at the coffee shop. Just open a camera. Because I had this client uh, out in Spain, and he just started recording videos on hiking trails of him and his collie dog. He's like, hello, I am JP, and this is my dog. And he became famous. I call it dog-led growth. So you have these threads in LinkedIn where they ghost you. Send a cat poke gif, send a George Clooney bump, send a video message. So this guy paid me, I think, $25,000, and he's like, are you seriously going to teach me to send gifs of George Clooney and manatees hitting the glass and like cat poke gifs? And I gave you all this money. I was like, let's try. Literally on a live Zoom, I'm coaching him. He starts sending the cat poke to the last 5 people that ghosted him. You send it, boom, response. That's hilarious. Let's take a meeting. He gets a meeting. I'll give you one other one. I always give this in my trainings when I do lectures. So I only had like a few clients not succeed. I call this the cutting board caper. So think of like a charcuterie board, a cheese board.
Mm-hmm.
I had this client, and all he did, he sends a custom cheese board. It says Hodkinson on it. And he says, can we carve out some time? He drop ships them on Amazon. Whenever I have a team, I tell this story, and then like 2 weeks later, a month later, I come back in. Someone's like, "Hey, I set a meeting with the cutting board."
It's got to
So
stand out, right?
it's gimmicky.
Yeah, we've done sessions previously. Not I haven't interviewed Lewis on the podcast just yet, but Lewis Sanford runs the mail shop, and he sends crazy stuff in the post on behalf of B2B leaders. So,
That'll
and
do
we,
it. Stu Heineke is one too. You know how to get a meeting with everyone. He's a cartoonist. He does huge cartoon words. There's this other guy too, sorry to jump in, named Dan Walschmidt. He would send
yeah,
a sword, an actual freaking like full sword engraved, be
wow,
the hero for $1,000. He's really nice. He's read my books. He even like DMs me on WhatsApp. He's a sweet, cool human. Dan Walschmidt.
yeah.
Just follow him.
So Lewis actually he's got a bit of an edge to him as well. He sends out cucumbers with a pot of Vaseline, and I think the message is something along the lines of "you getting shafted by your agency" or something along those lines.
Oh,
Again,
that's
if you're
pretty
going to
good.
vibe with the people that you vibe with, they're going to match your tone, right?
Yeah, humor is powerful. I mean, I think people underestimate how powerful the real-time channel is of DMs. I was coaching HubSpot down in Australia, and they're like, Justin, like, we think this DM flow fourth frame thing you have is like my talky more challenge of this way that I chat flow. They're like, CMOs aren't on LinkedIn.
Mm.
Well, and so I said this to the team lead. I'm like, this is kind of weird, but I took the lyrics of Justin Bieber, What Do You Mean? And I just sent it to C-levels every 10 minutes. And 100% of them told me to stop. They're all there in email and over social. So I taught the technique to this really senior seller down at HubSpot Australia, and he shared a screen. He had like 34 back and forth DMs with all these awesome CMOs. They're all sitting there. The green light is on. They're checking it. You're just not remarkable. You're not provocative. You're you're generic vanilla pitch slapping again, right? You need to look like the cover of Matt's book.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
just red. Oh, it's red, but it's boring red. It's expected red. No, you need mescapol. I mean, right? I mean, that's everything I'm about is that cover.
love it.
Weird word, weird linguistics, cool colors, jagged. It's like a Miro painting. It's like modern art. It pulls you in. You're like Salvador Dali. Like, what am I looking at? The art of confusion. If it's a little confusing, it's okay, right? Like a Christopher Nolan movie. Like you just can't figure out the plot of Tenet. You watch
No,
it over and over. Like, what is this really the
I've tried.
script?
I've really tried. I've failed with that one specifically. With most of them, I can get there, but you're right. You need to get people leaning in, right, and saying, "What am I looking at? I need to, being
Mystery.
inquisitive, curious to find more." Yeah,
I use a lot of that. The Netflix formula, like, okay, 9 seasons, and we're finally going to find out. Lost.
yeah. Love it. Right, Justin, I'm going to carry over a feature from the consultancy edge into the unique boutique that we do with our guests. And this is going to be on the spot a little, but it's Snog, Marry, Avoid. Now, Snog in this instance is a quick win. We covered this perhaps when we're talking about what's that thing you can do by Monday. So perhaps it's just a reframe. What should people be doing as a quick fix in their business to get themselves some more opportunities?
Take the last 10 people that ghosted you that didn't respond and send them the funniest GIF you can think of. I don't care if it's SpongeBob, a manatee, George Clooney, and just send it. You could just send the word thoughts. It would also work, but just send a wacky GIF
Yeah.
to the people ghosting you. See what happens.
I want to hear from people who get that and make it work for them. Okay, and marry is something for the long term, Justin. What are you not letting go of no matter what? What's the mainstay?
Like my North Star philosophy? What's the
Well, yeah,
question?
I guess or something you couldn't live without in your business.
Oh, well, for me, I don't know. I am a huge advocate of Sales Navigator. I did the work for LinkedIn. The Empire State Building is one way to go, but I do think LinkedIn's the Bloomberg terminal. It's the new cold call. So
Yeah,
the ability to have those DM flows is really powerful.
yeah, I agree with that. And avoid. What's something that you would advocate that our listeners ditch in their business? What's not serving them well?
The constant need to do these really loud posts on LinkedIn about their life story. And this is a sort of weird class of influencer where it's like they're like 17, broke, worked at a coffee shop, drugged out, 26, making 50K. Now I'm making 2 million a month. Like this is weird, like humble brag and download my formula blueprint, and just over and over. And I get you can do that when you're Tony Robbins or you're Russell Brunson or Daniel Priestley, and that's cool. But even those guys occasionally do that. There's this over reliance on the shock inbound, and then the
Yeah.
bots are hitting and all that. And they're like, oh wow, I got an inbound lead. It's like it's becoming inefficient. LinkedIn's lost a lot of reach. So I would say go to YouTube, get
Yeah.
serious, emulate what Matt's doing here because I think you're spot on. I mean, it's so funny because I read the questions for the interview. And I'm like, I think we're going to disagree here. But then actually meeting you and talking through it, you're on it. I made millions doing exactly what you said. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
on the
Love
spot. I'll
that.
have to read your book.
Good. Yeah, please do. Justin, just lastly, what's next for you? What's on the horizon? Any more books? Any big projects? What's occurring?
I've been helping a lot of my clients write books. I have 6 clients that are writing books with the publisher. Sometimes I'll write a 4, I'll lean in and help them. That's cool, seeing their dreams come alive. The last 5 clients, a lot of these folks did 100 grand in 90 days. My goal is to get 10 of my clients to 100K a month. I think about 4 of it. I mean, we're really solid hitting 100,000 a month is very unusual.
Yeah.
People brag that they do it, but it is kind of rare. For me, just to kind of sustain. I mean, I've got clients coming out of my ears. I've written way too many books. Now it's just about like I'm 46 and I would love to just sort of sustain till 50 and see where this goes and just keep sharpening and polishing the Justin Michael method and 7-figure formula and the methodology. Been traveling around Europe. I'll probably get back to the US, but I always say something like that and then some kind of book idea hits me and then I'm obsessively moving in another direction. I never know.
Fantastic. I love that. Right. Live from Zurich, Switzerland. Justin Michael, thank you so much for joining us on the Unique Boutique today.
Been a pleasure. Thanks so much.